Right about now, we'll be going into our question and answer session. But before that, the moderator would engage the panel, and then I would employ us to quickly write down our questions. So while we have a few questions here started up, and then I'll just get our questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going into the interactive segment, as my colleague said there. I'd like a round of applause, first of all, for our two distinguished guests who are here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. They've given up their time at an early start to the year to come here to try and share value with us. I would like to just ask my entrepreneurial colleagues here, please, it doesn't matter what's on your mind, big or small. Everyone here is an individual, and we all run separate companies. So we all have separate needs, and we all have separate fares. No question is too small or too complicated. So I'd encourage you to please write and just send the questions up. I'll be happy to present them. Thank you. So to get things going, while everyone is raising their hands and asking for paper, I'd ask one or two questions here to the guests, and they'll start talking, and then we'll await more questions from the audience. Just one more thing, please. If you're going to write in a question, I'd like to know if you're an alumni of FATE Foundation, if you've attended any of our courses. So just scribble at the bottom if you are or if you're not. And if you're not, why not? That's a joke, but if you're not, hurry up and join us. So thank you very much for your time, sir. Thank you very much for your time. And I think the questions I have, I'll just try and pose one to the left and one to the right. Are you ready? Is your mic working? Okay, hot mic. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to start with taxes. I'm going to come back to you, sir. In your presentation just a few minutes ago, you mentioned that a lot of companies don't transcend a second generation. That's a bit of a problem because most Nigerian small businesses and business operators, they have something called pride of ownership. So it's quite difficult to nurture a business and go through all the sacrifices that an entrepreneur has to make, typically sacrificing time, resources. When people are having a good time, as it were, you're back at home, studying, counting, growing your business. To find out that after 30, 40, 50 years of that sort of work, that the business is just going to fritter off within the next 2 or 3 years, it's really a heart-wrenching proposition or reality. Now, here's my question, based on my observation. I've been fortunate to grow up and live in England as well as Nigeria. Over in the Western culture, it's very easy for a business owner to start, build, and sell their business. There's a ready market. In fact, if you listen to most of the millionaires that people see, let's say typically in America, the exit strategy or the exit pathway is to sell. You start a business in a niche where you're very good, you grow it, right? You do your work, and your idea is maybe in 3 years, Apple will buy you. Apple will buy you, or Google will buy you, or a bank will buy you. Why are those opportunities not available? Why is there a dearth of, should I say, a marketplace where entrepreneurs who don't necessarily want to pass on their businesses to their children because their children may not be interested, as we said, why is Nigeria lacking in that kind of marketplace which could energize and catalyze a whole generation of entrepreneurs? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Let me start by saying that for people that may not know, there's so many family-owned businesses today that are more than 100 years old, and they become global brands. Coca-Cola of this world, Toyota of this world. Those are family businesses. And you look at what Dangote has done, right? Dangote is trying to institutionalize his business, right? So now, the whole idea is that the business can run without him, right? Because he's got a whole lot of things that he needs to put in place, right? Now, when you talk about the opportunities not here in Nigeria, I think the opportunities are here. What I think that is lacking is that when we start a business, most of us are not thinking about what is going to happen to that business. Or if we're thinking at all, we just assume out of necessity that our children will take over that business from us. That is what we'll assume. But when you look at what is happening now, a lot of children have so many vested interests. I have a niece that went to school, read business administration, and she came back and said she wanted to be a musician. And that is what she's doing, right? I mean, her mom runs a business, and her mom is thinking that she's going to hand over the business to her. But now she's not interested. She wants to be a musician. So what I see is lack of information. It's not that the opportunities are not available. It's lack of knowledge and lack of information, number one, as to what is going to happen to my business. Once you understand, and it depends on your objective. Do you want to leave a legacy, or are you just interested in just making money? If your primary objective is to leave a legacy, then you'll be concerned as to succession, as to what is going to happen to that business. And what you then need to do is to put structures in place. To first understand, am I going to be able to leave my business to my children? Are they showing interest in this business? And you start by having conversations with them. And you know whether they're interested or not. If they're not interested, you then start thinking about your employees. Because at the end of the day, what you want is just a family name to survive. It can be an employee that can run the business. And the next thing you also have to do is that in Nigeria, you know, the way we run our own businesses is that we run it in such a way that if the owner is not around, the business does not run. Everything comes to a standstill, right? Because people don't think they need to put structures in place. You're asking them, oh, you need to have some department for finance, for HR, and they say to you, I know this. I am my own HR director, my own accountant. Why do I need to put structures in place? So when you don't have to put structures in place, that has nothing to do with opportunity. It's a question of knowing that this is what I need to do. So for me, the opportunities are there. I told you the story I started with. 2007 to now, 6 billion. Now, what the person is trying to do now is to institutionalize that business, because that business has grown. I understand some people that don't want to grow their business. They just like it small. That is fine. I mean, obviously, if you don't want to grow, then you can keep it small. But one thing is for sure, is that business will die. So the opportunities are here. And because for an investor to invest, they have to look at the business and say to themselves, does it make sense to invest money? You're not going to put the money in a business that doesn't seem attractive to them. So the opportunities are here, but I think it has to do with the primary driver of the owner, and it has to do with knowledge, lack of knowledge and lack of information. But the opportunities are surely here. If Dangote can do it, I don't see why anybody here cannot do it.
Okay, so thank you very much. Let me just recap the answers to that. There are opportunities for you to start, grow, and exit your business through sale. You're happy for me to direct people to you when they're ready.
That's fine.
Right, so if you're stuck with that, then follow him on LinkedIn and send your questions or comments.
Actually, I think I showed my email address on my phone on the presentation. Right. The last slide actually has my email, or if you follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay, so to my entrepreneurs...
it was there. So maybe it wasn't sure.
Okay. We'll send it out to everyone that has signed in, and that opportunity will be there for you to ask further questions. So you can build your companies, and you can plan an exit. You don't have to hold a company for life, you know, but you just have to be aware that that is your goal, right? And you don't really stay on past your sell-by date. Okay, thank you very much. Please keep the questions coming in. I'm going to pose my first question, sir. Mr. Laoye, to you. Now, I have observed, would I call it interesting changes in policy from the CBN towards lending. And they've been trying to force banks to lend more money to the business sector, right? And they've brought in this cash reserve ratio, loan ratios to the cash reserve ratios to try and force banks to lend more money, which is a good thing on the face of it. However, I've also spoken to some EDs in banks and GMs who are quite unhappy, you know, because they believe that the environment is not secure enough for them to push out these loans to businesses. So there we have an aggressive policy which by all intents and purposes, should be reaching out to all entrepreneurs, right? But on the other hand, some of the banks are still holding back on their cash. But nevertheless, there's still net growth in the attitude, at least, that banks have towards giving money. I'd like to ask you, sir, if you could give us just 2 things that we could take away, because I'd like my audience to leave with actionable ideas, right? Are there any 2 tips you could give any entrepreneur, either in the start, basically in the ideation, startup, and growth phase? Are there any 2 ideas or 2 tips you could give us here that would help us approach the banks at this point in time? Because it's a unique combination of circumstances. The interest rates are being forced lower, and the banks are being forced to give more money. A lot of entrepreneurs are still a little bit afraid, but could you give us 2 tips, please, or 2 things that we could possibly do that would encourage us to be able to go forth and take loans from these institutions? Thank you.
Well, if your proposals are bankable, banks will lend to you. You know, okay, from where you started from about the 65% cash loan ratio, I mean, for those of us that have been around, you know that even this CBN went as far as being prescriptive by saying, give sectoral lending, give this and that and that and that. And yet, on paper, there is compliance. The reality is, banks are no charity. Their job is to intermediate between the surplus and the deficit sector. All of us here save our money in bank, and we want to go to a bank and get our money whenever we write our checks, right? At the same time, some of us are here, we still want to get our money, we want them to lend to us at low rate. Sometimes I pity the banks, right? But the thing is that when you start up, I always tell people, banks will lend money to you when you have track record of performance. There are different kind of financing you need at different stages of the... You know, we don't have venture capitals in Nigeria yet. Therefore, expecting to get bank to finance you because your idea is good, is risky, it's good, isn't going to happen. Most of the banks we have are not venture capital funds, they are commercial banks. Therefore, if you have an idea as a small firm, the first thing I tell is, hey, how much of your personal money is available? 1. Secondly, how much of the money of people around you that believe in you? Because banks will look for trends. Now, when you begin to, and how much impactful are your ideas? Because there are impact grant money all over the place. But when you sit down there and you are not solving problems that are impact, I always tell people now, I say, you know what? There are grants that will reach out to you if you are gender sensitive. There are grants that will come out to you if you're working around nutrition. There are grants that will come to you if you're working around climatic change and a few of those things. So, if you want grants, ask yourself, am I dealing with problems that are impactful? If you're doing what every other person is doing, and you think money will come to you, it will not come to you. The second thing is that I've always talked about the need for us to do, banks now are looking for some level of club lending. Club lending being, how do we aggregate yourself together? Because what you know that, I look forward to how your alumni, for instance, will metamorphose into a position where you can actually begin to ask for some club loan for your members. Because you know them. Because you can help them, prepare them good enough for that business. So, those are the quick wins I think you can do. Anything outside of that, it's tough. But there are those grants, but those grants go to people that are solving major problems. Problems of nutrition, problems of education. If you have new ideas about how well you can educate people and make them very well, you will get the money. problems around how you can include people. There are people today that are reaching out to farmers all over the place and ensuring that they bring their farm to marketplace and they get the right produce. And I'll share this with you. There was a friend of mine, I used to know him as an economist, right? And a lawyer. But I never knew him as a farmer. But there was this challenge that the DFI did threw out about how do we raise the earning level of women. So he then went to this community of women in the dairy sector and look at how they can grow their revenues. And so he did some good study. He found out the fact that while people can be going around and doing, what's this when you have the animal cows move around? This one will herding. But he then decided that he would do ranching. And he then found out that it's just the kind of grass that those animals feed on. So got this group of women together somewhere in southern Kaduna. And they did that. Within a space of 1 year, the yield of those women grew up by 600%. And they created a hub where you then have different value chain. People came around moving those things and then money started chasing them. Now they are seeing how they can replicate that in other parts of the country. So is your idea impactful? Is your idea reaching out to many people and solving problems? If your ideas are doing that, you will get the fund. Do a little work, do a little research, and you find out where the funds are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So to summarize, yes, the loans are being pushed out. The banks are being put under pressure to put out the loans. But it's not free money. Just as it's difficult for you to grow your own business, the banks are also as cautious, about theirs. So in summary, do your homework, get a bankable business plan, and then approach the banks. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, as you can see, I have a ton of questions here, and I think we'll be here till 5 o'clock if we don't move fast. So in FATE Foundation's timekeeping tradition, I'm going to try and move very, very fast. It's also interesting to note, yes, there are quite a few alumni here. I greet you all. Also, there are a few questions that pertain to you and plenty tax questions. So that's a reflection of the mindset of the entrepreneur in this 2020. Yes, all matter tax matter. Okay, so thank you. So I'm going to try and move quite fast here. But I'm going to come to you for one question, and then I'm going to face you squarely, sir. Thank you. Okay, so this is a question. It's from a FATE alumni. It goes like this. In your opinion, if the leakages due to corruption are plugged, is there any chance we would need to raise tariffs or tariffs on requiring Nigerians to pay higher for infrastructure and services? That's part A. Here the part B. Does the 666 million, I'm not sure if it's 666, but they're talking about the FDI, which is the portfolio inflow, right? Okay, that's the FDI. Okay, I've got you. So does the 666 million FDI include investments in startups like Gokada, which are run by foreign nationals? So, sir, I know you've spoken at many forums, so I'd ask you to maybe just take a minute on both, or if you can collapse them together, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start from the rear. When money comes in, you feel certificate of capital importation. So if the money came in Nigeria, that's how all those things are captured. So whether it's for A, B, C, because the ultimate thing is that when you are taking your money out, you want to pay dividends. So it comes through capital importation. So I don't have the disaggregate figure, but I know any money that came in through capital importation was captured, because without that, you wouldn't get your dividends and repatriation. If you block corruption, we will need to raise money. You need to do both. Let me not kid us. there is corruption. And we need to be efficient in our tax collection and block leakages. But the second thing is that we are not a rich nation. We tell ourselves we have money. And what I tell people is that take the whole of the budget we are running at the federal level this year. It's about 10 trillion, right? Divide it by 200 million people. How much do you think we all get? 50,000 naira each per annum. Divide it. Okay, now it's 10 trillion divided by 200 million people is 50,000 naira. If you look at the budget of other nations around us, they're not much. So which is why, as far as the economy is concerned, the government aspect of Nigerian GDP is just 10%. The whole 90% is private sector. It is private sector that oils it. Government's work is to create the environment, make the policies that bring money in. So we need to block corruption, and we need to deal with the area of taxes. And believe you me, tariff is what you use when you want to promote area where you have some, we call competitive advantage. Right. But tariff if your tariff is talking about electricity and coal, brother, nobody should subsidize consumption.
What is the update on CBN loans for FATE alumni? I was called to open an account at Nersal Microfinance Bank a month ago, but no update. So I believe it's neither going to go to the left or to the right. It's going to go, yes, it's going to go to, to the side. Yes, someone with Nersal is going to attend to this question. Yeah. So let me repeat the question again, please. Yeah. Could you give him a mic, please, so that we can. What is the update, sir?
I'm the branch manager of NISA Microfinance Bank, the one at Marina. The CBN used to handle NISA, admin's loan application before now, until about 3 months ago, when they relinquished that to the bank. And as at the time they were giving us the mandate to take over fully, we had no less than over 70,000 applicants, aside the ones that were yet to be interviewed by the CBN. And we came on board less than 6 months ago. There is no way we would have been able to call everybody to come and, have interface with us and do loan disbursement. But I can assure you, in the last 1 month, in my branch alone, I have disbursed well over 1.3 billion. I came late today because I have been handling interview for AGMI's applicants. Yesterday alone, in my desk, I interviewed 32 people. And I let people in the branch now being handled by my subordinate. Now, the question is this. For the people that have been interviewed by CBN before and they had approval, if anybody is among those people, please go back to our website, apply online so that we can track your application. The truth of the matter is that we have a mandate that within a space of about 4 weeks, both the application, the appraisal, and the disbursement should happen. So if there is anybody here, whether you have been interviewed before by CBN or you just want to come in as a fresh applicant, please, you have the opportunity of accessing our website, apply for the loan. But for those who don't know how to go about it, it's a simple process. We have streamlined things to make it easier for everybody. All you need to do is to come to any branch of NISA Microfinance Bank that is close to you. We are at Marina here. We have another one at Ikeja. When you open an account, we'll send you to an EDI. Yeah, that is Entrepreneur Development Institution. Thank God, FATE Foundation is one of them. We have pegged the training fee to 10,000 naira. There is no EDI that is taking more than 10,000 for the 5-day training. After the training, then you go to our website and apply for your loan. On that website, we have also made it easier for applicants now. You don't need to come with very bulky business plan. You can buy a business plan as small as 5,000 naira. Once you pay through your card or fund transfer menu, then you are able to access a simplified, business plan. Once you apply, it gets submitted. I can assure you, there were people who applied less than 2 months ago on the website. They are part of the people we are conducting interview for. Please, the loan is working. It's 10 million naira maximum you can access. Now, the tenure maximum is 7 years. And also, the interest rate technically is 9%, but in actual fact, it's 5%. And I will explain that. The 4% component is our what commercial bank call legal fee or processing fee, but we call it administrative fee. It's 10% of the 4% of the total loan. That is our administrative charge, and it is one-off. The 5% element will be per annum for the period of the loan. It is simple and straight. There are no hidden charges anywhere. Please. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I practice? Okay, thank you for that. So it's time for tax matter. Question 1. We are a very large consulting firm. With respect to this VAT increase, right, which should have flagged off 1st of February with the signing or gazetting of the Finance Act, what happens to contracts that have been signed with clients when the VAT was 5%?
When you start raising invoices that matter, not when you executed the contract.
Simple and short. So when you send your new invoices, you just need to mark them up and then put footnotes appropriately. Okay, good day, speakers. I'm an alumni of FATE. I'm an alumni member. I registered my organization as a business name in 2008. So it's a, I think, sole trader entity. Since then, I've been unable to file my taxes. In 2017, that'll be about 11 years later, I registered with the FIRS to get a TIN number. And I was told to pay penalties for not remitting taxes since 2008. With the Finance Act of 2019. So what I believe the positioning statement is here is if your turnover is less than 25 million naira, you don't need to pay such taxes. I believe, I'm reading between the lines, right? So the question says, with the Finance Act 2019, do I still need to pay the penalty? And a big question mark. Thank you, sir.
Okay. The short answer to that is yes, because the Finance Act only became effective from 1st of February. But what you can do really is that if you start a business then way back in 2008, and you probably, two things could have happened. Maybe you hadn't done any business, no transactions, right? And you just need to, you still have to file returns, right? You can actually go to meet with the FIRS. They are very understanding, right? You can negotiate that, and they might be able to waive, because now we have a new chairman of the FIRS, right? So they can actually show some understanding, and they can waive that, provided that you're willing to comply, or they may come in and negotiate something that is something reasonable that you can pay. But if you've been doing transactions, and maybe part of it is that you've withheld some taxes, right? Because if you withheld some taxes, you need to remit what you've withheld. Now, if it is your own tax that you have not paid, you still can meet with the FIRS, and you can come to an understanding. One of the things they can do is to spread the payment over a period of time. But the answer to your question is that the Finance Act does not invalidate any tax that was due prior to the effective date of the Finance Act, which was 1st of February 2020.
Thank you very much. I would also add, I'm not a tax expert, but with the government bringing in the BVN, the NIN, the TIN numbers all together, it's going to become increasingly difficult for anybody to have any form of, should I say, wriggle or maneuvering space. So to the lady or gentleman who posed that question, and to anyone else in the same kind of condition, it may be well worth you trying to take the advice of panelists here and approach them. You know, spread the payments, try and get a negotiated amount on it, and then spread it over months and years. Because once that goes into the system and is locked in with your BVN and other details, it'll pop up. If you register a new company and they put in your BVN details, it'll pull all the details from this 11, 12-year-old business, which you've just tried to keep as analog files. Okay, that's my 10 cents. Thank you. So, next question. Are you expected to pay tax if you're not making profit? I think you spoke about that, but let's believe that the person writing the question missed that segment. So question 1, are you expected to pay tax if you're not making profit? Please bear in mind, sir, that I'm not sure if this is a sole entrepreneur or a company. And second part, are you also expected to file in your income and expenditure even when you're not making profits?
Okay. Let me explain. It also depends on what business structure model you're using, whether you're using an incorporated entity or a limited liability company, right? If you're using a limited liability company, right, you still have to file returns. Well, depending on, especially from 1st of February, if your turnover is below 25 million, right, you don't pay taxes. Even if you make profits, you don't pay taxes. So, but then you still have to file your returns. But if you're making profits, right, and your turnover is below 25 million, like I said, you still don't pay, right? But if you're above that and you're making losses, you don't pay taxes, all right? But there is what is called a minimum tax that you pay. Now, that depends on how many years you've been in business. I mean, if it is within 4 years, you don't pay the minimum tax. But if it's above 4 years, you pay the minimum tax, which is just 0.5% of your turnover. Right, that is the case. But for sole proprietorship, right, if you don't make profits, what that means is that you have your business accounts that will prove. Because it's not by saying you don't make profits. They will need to see the financials, the records, right, to support it. And once they look at the records and they're satisfied that you're not making profits, then there is what is called the minimum tax, right, that you pay, okay, which is just 0.5% also. Just is very small of your income. You pay that by way of taxes. So whether you make losses or not, it's a function of how many years you've been in business. For a company above 4 years, you still pay minimum tax. If you're below 4 years, you don't pay minimum tax. For an individual, it doesn't matter how long you've been in business, you pay a minimum tax. And that is why your structure is always very important. You need to make sure that you have the right structure for your business.
Thank you. I think also, it didn't indicate that if you're an alumni or not. FATE Foundation has extensive material on this that you can just access online. The MSME Hub, if you go over there, you'd see video clips from various professionals, tax professionals that address such issues. You'd also see articles that have been written about these, so you'll be able to get more information. Thank you. I'm going to come back to you, sir, briefly. How accurate are the figures and data computed by the NESG? Can they be relied upon? One sentence answer, sir.
Well, we rely on MBS data. MBS is the #1 authority for data in Nigeria. And that's how we get our figure. Apart from when we go on the field. We are very accurate. Very, very.
Thank you. Very simple and short. How do you terminate a registered company that isn't profitable? When do you start filing your returns? Is it immediately after the first year? If you're a small business and you have collected VAT from a company... Okay, I'm struggling a little bit with this. Okay, I think the question is, if you're a small business and you've already collected VAT from one of your clients, I think, what do you now do? So perhaps they're under 25 million naira threshold, but they've already billed VAT and the VAT has come in. What do you now do? And then the second part is, as a small business, are they still now going to collect VAT going forwards? So let me recap. I'm combining 3 questions. You know, when do you start filing your annual returns? Is it immediately or after the first year? How do you go about terminating a registered company that isn't profitable? And as a small business, are they going to continue deducting VAT, seeing as they are not obliged to register for that anymore? And the fourth part is, if you've already collected some VAT, what do you now do? Thank you.
Okay, let me start with the last one. We've defined a small company to be a company that has a turnover of less than 25 million, right? That's a small company, right? So effective February 1st, you're not required to register for VAT. So you're not required to comply with VAT. But if you had collected VAT prior to February 1st, because the money is not yours, it belongs to government, you must remit the VAT that you've collected. That doesn't stop you from remitting the money you have collected. It's government's money, not yours. And if you don't remit it, right, and they find out, and they will surely find out, then you'll be assessed to interest and penalty, which is avoidable. So just make sure you remit the VAT that you've already withheld to government. In terms of filing, for a limited liability company, I mean, within 6 months, whatever your year end is, right, within 6 months of the year end, you must file your tax returns. So if your year end is December, then you have up to June 30th to file your returns. That is the period you file returns. But if you're running an incorporated entity, so you're an individual, so what that means is that you're going to submit a self-assessment returns, and that has to be done, by 31st of March for you to file your returns, to Lagos State or whichever state you're resident in. So it all depends on which business structure you're using. How do you go about terminating a limited liability company that is not doing well? It's pretty straightforward. When you register the business, the company with CAC, Corporate Affairs Commission. And so for you to liquidate a company, the very first thing you need to ask yourself is it voluntary? Is the business not owing money? Right? Because if it is voluntary, then it's pretty straightforward to liquidate. But if the business is owing money, one of the things they will try and find out is whether you're owing taxes. Right? They will not liquidate a business that is owing taxes. Right? So you first have to pay the taxes before they can liquidate. So if that business is not owing money, you've settled all your liabilities, then that is voluntary liquidation. It's pretty straightforward. Pass resolution, notify the CAC. There are some forms that you need to fill, and then the company will be delisted on completion, right? But if it is not involuntary, so creditors are the ones that process. But I think from the direction of the question, this is voluntary, right? So you have to make sure that you've settled all your liabilities. You've settled your tax liabilities, because there are processes you need to advertise in the papers so that people will know that you are about to close the business, so that creditors will become aware and they can make their claim, right? So that's the way it works.
Thank you. If you're a limited liability company in the agri sector, and that's the reason I'm prioritizing this question, because we have quite a few of our members in that sector, and more are coming because of the various government incentives. Okay, so if you're a limited liability company in the agri sector, primary production and processing, with an annual revenue turnover of over 40 million, are you expected to pay taxes even though the agro sector is largely tax exempt?
Well, it's not correct to say it's largely tax exempt. It depends. So there are so many incentives for agri sector, right? So the very first thing is this: under the current law, you can actually not pay tax for about 8 years if you're just starting business. Okay, so the law allows you to plow back your profit. So you will not pay taxes for 8 years. But if you have already been in business, right, and you've gone beyond the 8 years, right, so the only incentives that you have will be in terms of the loan that you get, because there are certain incentives that you can get in such a way that the banks that provide you the loan will not pay tax on the interest income that they earn. And so what that does is that they pass on the benefits to you by way of reduction in interest rate. But there are certain conditions that have to be met, like the moratorium for the loan, right? And the other thing, of course, is if you're manufacturing for exports, then you have a whole lot of incentives that that you are entitled to. But it would not be correct to say that you won't pay taxes. But there are so many benefits, so many incentives that the government has given just to motivate the agri-business. And when you talk about agri-business, it's not limited to crop production. It also covers, animal husbandry, you're running poultry or plantation or what have you. All those ones will benefit from the incentives that government has put in place. But there's so many incentives, but Betty can see me later, but you still have to pay taxes.
Okay, thank you. quick one. Small business operating online that has no physical structures, how do they pay their taxes? Thank you. One sentence answer, please, sir.
I mean, the same way whether you run a virtual business or you run a business from a location, you still have to pay taxes because you have a TIN number. So you have a tax authority. So you have to file your returns online as long as you make profit, right? But if you're not making profit, you're a small business. Okay, your definition of small business is below 25 million. Now you're exempt, from paying taxes, but you still have to file returns. You must have a TIN number, a tax identification number for you to file returns. So you must register and go to the FRS website and submit your returns online. They actually have the facility for you to submit returns online. The only problem is that it crashes most of the time. And so you may have to be patient to submit your returns, but there is a facility for you to submit your returns online.
Please also bear in mind that the government is also looking at taxing money coming into bank accounts, right? Electronic payments, electronic transfers, etc. I'm sure you all know that. So their eyes are increasingly going to be on the new wave businesses, which are the e-businesses, which are basically what the last question was referring to. I have no visibility, I have no physical structures, I work alone, it's me and my laptop and my market. My money comes to my account, onshore, offshore, do I still need to pay taxes? I think the simple answer is yes. The government will increasingly even track that revenue easier. Once they mandate the banks to flag certain transactions, they'll get easier information about you than they would if they had to go down the streets and physically take pictures of shop fronts. Thank you.
You can even run an account now without having a tax identification number.
Yes.
So the very first thing is even if you're running an account and you've not registered for taxes before, between the next 30 days, they're going to be writing to you to provide your tax identification number. If you can't provide one, they will freeze your account. You will not be able to use your account. So except you don't want to be in the banking sector, right? You don't want to, that's the only way you can have. Even then, you can't even avoid it because the people that you do business with, they can access your records through them. So they're trying to to plug all the loopholes now.
Okay, so I'm going to take this. It's interesting. Perhaps I'll answer this one myself. Thank you very much, sirs and ma'as. I run a plantain chips business. I pay tax in my business name. How can I change to my personal name? I think it's the same thing. Okay.
When you say tax, well, there are two things there. You might be talking about VAT. Yeah. Okay, if it's VAT, you pay VAT in the business name. But when you're talking about income tax, right, you pay the income tax in your own name. Yeah. So that's the difference I would say. But if you're running a small plantain chips business now, even if you've already been filing VAT returns, because any business doing less than 25 million is exempt from VAT. So you're exempt, but you have to notify the tax authorities that you're a small business. Because don't forget, they already have your records that you're filing returns based on what you say. And then if you don't file returns, they'll write to you. But you need to notify them that you're a small business for you to be exempt from paying tax, the VAT.
Thank you. So this second part says, I really need help with an exclamation point. I need to grow my business. I need to grow. My business has the capacity to employ at least 10 workers, but I have just 3 presently. We have never met up with our orders. That's a fantastic position to be in. Demand is more than supply. In capital letters, please help. And then a footnote at the bottom, I'm not an alumni. This is my first, time here. So I'll answer that. I'll say congratulations. You have a great, this is a great problem. Entrepreneurs solve all types of problems. This is a fantastic problem. The reason you're having this problem is just like you said, you're not an alumni of FATE Foundation. So the simple answer is, as soon as we finish, I think you should just grab anybody. And if you can't see anybody, I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. This is a great problem to have, and I think we'll be able to help coach you and point you in the right direction where you can get the information and systems that you need to be able to grow your business. Congratulations in advance. I don't think everyone should rush into plantain chip business now, okay? Okay, so there are so many questions here. We've hardly scratched the surface. I'm being told to round up. So I'm just going to try and pick 2 at random. Fantastic. So I'm being told that there'll be a tax workshop because this is just a pointer to where the huge demand is. And I would also try and push to see if FATE Foundation could also maybe just open a temporary WhatsApp chat group where these questions can be posted on, and then the answers can be given, and after that, that group can be taken down maybe after a week. So I'm going to throw the challenge open to my colleagues on the other side in FATE. I know you guys do fantastic things with technology. There are a lot of questions here, so I'll hand the questions over. And since most of you are alumni, I'll try and get FATE to post a link on the General Ambassadors chat there. And then if you have a question, you'll be invited over, or you can just migrate over to the new chat group on WhatsApp platform that would answer some of these questions. And I'd encourage them to leave that group active for about a week. And then after a week, it will be taken down. Thank you. So I'll take 2 more questions. And to be fair, I'm going to pick them at random. Okay, the penultimate one. Is there a way to file VAT returns online? Please outline the steps briefly. This is because SMEs have only 1 or 2 accounting staff, so monthly trips to the tax office is quite challenging. This is a very real source of pain. There are many that don't even have 1 accounting staff, coupled with, should I say, some of the shenanigans that often occur when you do try to go and do these things by yourself. It puts people off. Could you please just give us 2-3 steps if it's possible to file for VAT online? Thank you.
Actually, yes, it is possible. The answer to that is that people are filing their returns online. You can't file your returns online. But also remember, if your turnover is below 25 million, you don't need to file any VAT return. But you can file your returns online, whether tax or VAT. The only thing that you need to do is that you might need to be a bit patient, right, because of the connection in Nigeria. So it may be slow, but you can file your returns online.
All right. Okay, this question is a bit vague, so I'm going to push it to the platform. It's just asking what taxes am I liable for after 3 years. Also, I'd like to say that there's an app by KPMG which takes you through the taxes that you need to pay. It's available on the Play Store, on the Google Play Store, and on the Apple Store. So please, if you download that, it could help answer some of these questions. Okay, so this is the last question. How does one deal with clients who withhold our company's VAT invoice requests and they refuse to send such credit notes to us, the supplier, and we can't remit? So let me just summarize that. So you send your invoice, it has your 5% withholding tax on it, I believe, and then it has maybe your 7.5% VAT. Your payments are deducted automatically by the company on the pretext or reality on the basis that they are going to remit that to the government. And I believe the last rules were that a certificate should be generated in your name and sent to you so that you can balance your books. But the person asking this is saying that the company just refuses to send the credit notes to them. So they are basically out of pocket. They are paying VAT in delivering their services or products, but they are not able to claim back. How does one deal with that? Thank you.
Okay, let me address it from 2 perspectives because the person is talking about, I'm not sure whether the person is talking about withholding tax or VAT, but I will address the 2. Now, for VAT, it's like it's just going to be on top of your revenue, so it's not yours. So when you bill VAT, the only people that will withhold your VAT is that if you provided that service to the oil industry or to government agency, right? Those are the people that have the right to withhold your VAT, right? And that is what you've added on top. So you will not be out of cash, right? Except if you are in trading and then you don't have the ability to offset your input VAT against the output VAT, right? But the only sector, like I said, is the oil industry, or if you're dealing with government. Any other sector must pay you your VAT. Now, but if you're talking about withholding tax, so that is on your income. Now, depending on the kind of transaction you're talking about, it can either be 5% or 2.5% for construction or 10%. It all depends on the nature of the service. So they will withhold the service recipient will withhold that tax, and the responsibility is to pay. Now, that tax that has been withheld is actually advance payment of your own tax. Now, the way it works is that after they've withheld, they're supposed to remit the money within 30 days, all right, to government, now 21 days to government. But some people don't withhold it. They use it, don't remit it. They use it for their working capital, all right? But that is not your problem, right? Even if you don't have the credit, what happens now is that your account is automatically credited anytime that person, pays the tax over to government. Now, if the person doesn't pay the tax over to government, you then must be able to prove that certain amount of money has been withheld from your invoice. So once you can demonstrate that, you can actually use it to then offset your tax liability at the end of the year. So all you need to do is to keep track of the deductions from your invoice, right? And then offset it against your liability at the end of the year. That's the way it works.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'll stand up for this. On behalf of the alumni, on behalf of FATE Foundation, on behalf of all the wonderful people that are here, I'd like to extend a sincere appreciation to you, our deepest thanks for making time out and spending the last hour or 2 hours with us, trying to help us get a deeper understanding into what 2020 would hold, the good, the bad, and the opportunities. I invite you to please give a resounding round of applause. We're indeed very, very grateful to you, both Mr. Jaiyeola and, of course, to you, Mr. Tax Ajayi. Thank you all. Thank you all very much.
And a wonderful round of applause to our moderator. I think we now know who will be moderating our sessions going forward. You did an excellent job. Thank you very much.